Hi everyone, Jane here. Thank you so much for watching today. Today I wanted to go into the summer vibe a little bit. It's very warm here, and in the UK we are in the midst of summer. So I thought that I would use a couple of the Maremi collage books. So I've got out the summer stories and the journaling tickets, and I wanted to make like a vintagey summer spread. Now the book I'm using to create in today is the Dylusions 8x8 journal. It's one that has a very subtle ledger style paper in it. It's not like the Dina Wakley in that it's a lot more gentle in terms of the background print. So if you like the idea of there being something in the background, but the Dina Wakley is too intense in terms of how much there is on the pages for you, this could be a good alternative. It's on a mixed media cardstock, so it's not a watercolour cardstock. So I find that I prefer using this when I'm going to do something with acrylic paint, which is what I'm doing here. So I'd already chosen my images from the two collage books, and I used the images that I'd chosen to pick my colour selection. So I'm using the Amsterdam acrylics, and I'm using two of the colours to create a base. And the colours that I chose are Titanium Buff Deep and Naples Yellow Deep. So those are the two colours of the Amsterdam. So I did allow those to dry thoroughly before I moved on to this next stage. I wanted to create some sort of not reverse stenciling. I never remember what this is called. It's sort of like you put the paint down and then you lift the paint through the stencil. Rather than putting the paint through the stencil, I wanted to lift off the paint. So I'm using this stencil from Crafty, which is a company based in the UK. As always, I will list what I've used in the description box below. However, I do not add links because the way the world is today, I don't know where people are, who can get things, who can't get things, whether things are even still available. So I would always say, before you rush out and look for the things that maybe I've used or another creator's used, look through your own stash and see if you've got something that would work just as well. Because I know that quite often I see a stencil or a stamp set and I think, oh, I need that one. But actually within my own stash, I already have something that might be quite similar or that would be a good alternative. So I'm this time using some pink paint from the Amsterdam range. This set of paints is the pastels little set that they brought out. So the little bottles are only 20 ml, but it's an ideal size for me because I don't use loads and loads of acrylic paints. So this colour is Persian Rose, this pink. And then I wanted to add a little bit of a deeper colour in. So I went in with putting the paint actually through the stencil this time. I don't know if I ever said what the stencil was called. It's called, I do believe, Bakewell, because it's like the pattern that you sometimes get in the UK on the big Bakewell tarts, not the little cherry on the little cherry Bakewells, but when you get a big Bakewell tart, they do like a pattern on it, and it's like this. So I'm using now the greyish blue, but it was a bit too deep, so I mixed a little bit of the titanium buff in just to mute it down a bit. Now I've got my images that I'd already decided on. Now this I wanted to be my sort of like my background focal point that everything was going to be built up on. Now normally if it was something like a tissue paper, I would quite happily stick it across that seam in the middle of the pages, but this is a thicker paper that's in the Maremi books. It's more of a copy sort of paper, photocopier sort of weight of paper. Also, this journal that I am using is quite full already. So to the left, you can't see it so much in these the shots of the video, but oh, you might have been able to see it there. It's quite chunky on that left hand side, so there's quite a bulge when you go down into the next page. So that's why I cut the piece to actually put either side of the seam so that the book would be able to close okay, and it wouldn't tear it or damage it when I tried to close the book. So I started with that background piece, and I am using the Liquitex Professional Matte Medium, which is my personal favourite, but you know, whatever glue gel, glue stick, glue that you have got, that is, you know, what you can use. You do not have to use a matte medium for this. You know, any glue would work. I quite like that I do get a bit of wiggle time with this, because what I was doing was then I kept lifting up what I'd already stuck down to add other pieces in, because although I'd cut lots of pieces out, which is something that I tend to do, I tend to cut way more pieces than I think I'm going to need, because I want to have that ability to choose as I'm going. So I had planned out a page beforehand, then I took it all off. I'd forgotten where it was, and so I decided to just go with the flow as I was sticking them down. But that did mean that sometimes I realised as I stuck things down that I needed to lift other things. Now you will see with some of these pieces I am going over that seam straight over. I wasn't so worried with these because they're smaller pieces, and I really sort of stick my brush in to try and get them, across that seam of the pages. Luckily, I mean, most of the pieces lifted okay. If I'd left them down a bit longer, they were a bit more tricky, and some did tear a little bit. But because it's thin paper and it's just, it's in my journal, I'm not too worried if it's got torn bits or not, to be honest. I wasn't worried if bits tore, because as soon as you put them back down and you stick the matte medium or the glue or whatever back over, most of the time you're not even going to notice that there was any tearing going on. So you will see me auditioning pieces quite a lot, putting them in one place, deciding I didn't like that there, adding something else, moving it to another place. And sometimes I even cut the pieces so that they fit better into my composition. But this really is a fun stage for me. I really enjoy the putting it together, deciding where things go, and, having a bit of a relaxing time. So after I had added all the matte medium, you will notice that at the end of that previous clip, I did then add a layer of clear gesso. This was so that any mediums I now added would be able to move freely over the page without sort of balling up on the plasticky matte medium. I don't always do that, but because there had been so much matte medium put down, because I'd done such a lot of collage, I just did it just to make sure that whatever I put down next would go down okay. Now I'm adding in some shading around the main sort of bulk of the collage that I put down. Now the colour I'm using is Deep Indigo, which is one of my favourite Derwent Inktense pencils to use for this kind of thing. It's usually either Deep Indigo, Charcoal Grey or Bark. Those are my three top colours for using for shading. I do enjoy those ones because they're a little bit more subtle than a black, but they still give you that nice deep colour. Now because I've put the gesso down, the colour is, once I add the wood, it is moving around quite freely. I quite like that because I like to really blend my shading out. I don't like to have a harsh line, which does mean I go in and out and in and out with my my pencil. And I am actually taking the colour from the tip of the pencil with a damp brush. You can't, because the journal this time is quite big, you can't see a lot else going on around the page because obviously most of the image is taken up with the journal pages. But I am sort of dabbing the brush onto my hand, just take a little bit of water off each time because I don't want it to be too wet. And when I take the colour from the pencil, I'm taking it right from the tip. I'm not trying not to get that wood saturated at all, because that's, I don't want water going down into the wood of my pencil. So I did right around the edge of the images because I wanted it to sort of be as though that is a framed picture in the middle of my spread. But then I decided that she did need a little bit of shading around her as well, just to lift her from that background a little bit. So around the back of her head, I really went a little bit heavier because I wanted that to really be shaded and make her stand out a bit more. And then around her face and around her body, just to lift her a little bit from that background. Now once that had all dried, I decided that we did need some extra texture and stamping. I could have left it at this point actually. Now I look at it now, I think, yeah, but there was still quite a lot of space in there that I felt needed a little bit more. But I didn't want anything too intense, so I wanted some quite subtle stamping. So I'm using this stamp from the Tim Holtz set that's by Stampers Anonymous. It's Glitch 1. The rest of this is the stamp on that set that I actually use the most. And I do have a similar stamp from Darkroom Door called Grid that you will also see me use quite often. I like these grid type stamps. They're very subtle. And the colour I used was Faded Jeans for that in the archival link. But I still felt that more was needed, so I went in with this Studio Light stamp from their Grunge collection. It's called Typewriter Text. It's a brilliant stamp for just adding a little bit of something into the background, because the text is all, all different directions. You don't have to worry about which way you're doing it. And I stamped the Ground Espresso archival link on this. I'm using archival because it goes over so many different mediums really well and dries very quickly. Then I'd chosen a sentiment from the Summer Stories collage book, and this one just really seemed to go with the page. So a walk on the beach is worth 1,000 words, and I just thought that just summed up the imagery in this page. So I stuck them down with some Cosmic Shimmer glue, which is just a white acrylic glue. It's nothing particularly special. I use it because it always has just worked well for me, so I stick to what I know most of the time. And I'm just going around those words with the Copic Acrea in a sepia colour just to frame them. I did debate whether I needed to add anything more, but in the end I decided that I was quite happy with this. It has quite a soft sort of look to it. I didn't want to add anything to make it too bold in any places. I wanted it to have that lovely vintage, subdued, muted kind of palette going on. So that is my project today. Thank you ever so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, do please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed, I'd love it if you could do that as well. And if you see that hype button and you get a chance to press it, do please, because that really helps YouTube to know that these videos are things that people want to watch. And here is a list of my lovely super supporters, my YouTube members. Big extra shout out and thank you to them. So thank you again ever so much for watching, and until the next time, bye bye.